My deep appreciation of theater history was instilled in me by Tom Empey, a college mentor to me and hundreds of others. While teaching Greek theater terms, he would grab the fabric of his slacks and say, "You see these pants? Euripides Eumenides," making light of content that could be considered rather dry and stuffy while still maintaining respect for the art, which is what I want to do with this podcast. For each episode, I invite a guest from the many paths my theater career has taken me down. I give my guest no idea what we'll be talking about, but they know we're going to find an outrageous story about theater history and perhaps get a better understanding about why we're still doing it after all these years. So welcome to Euripides Eumenides, and I am your host, Aaron Odom.
Apocalypse, apocalypse, I said, why you wanna show up now? Just when the heart of my life was getting good. I'll give you one more chance. Walk on out of the door, yeah. Get your ass to getting where the getting is good.
Hey there, friends and listeners. This is Aaron Odom coming to you again. But before we get into today's episode, I am keeping up my promise to you to talk to you about a show that's coming up that's really cool. For those of you that are in New York, you can go see this live. Misdemeanor Dream, put on by Spider-Woman Theater. This will be going on at the La Mama Theater. And it's going from March 10th to the 27th, 2022. I've recently been sent some materials from it. Gosh, what a cool production this is. I'm fascinated by Spider-Woman's ability to blend a whole bunch of different art forms together to give a really cool, like an introspective on how we express ourselves as people, all from also the voice of indigenous peoples in North America. This play, like some of their other plays, takes place on what they call Turtle Island, which, for those of you who might have studied this in the past, you recognize as what some tribes have referred to as North America, because there are some beliefs that North America was formed on the back of a giant turtle. If you want to check it out, look them up. I'm going to leave links to the descriptions here, but I tell you what, just the idea of combining old to new storytelling methods is so similar to how this was done in the West. I'm very fascinated by how we're going to be able to see how stories are told from an indigenous perspective. So yeah, check them out. La Mama Theater is going to be showing Spider-Woman's Misdemeanor Dream March 10th through the 27th, 2022. And now to today's episode of Euripides Eumenides, a theater history podcast. Hello, my friends and listeners. This is Aaron Odom from Trident Theater in Sheridan, Wyoming, coming to you again with a very special episode of Euripides Eumenides, a theater history podcast. Today, I have several guests on the show because this is the group that this last year Trident produced Rocky Horror Picture Show with. And for those of you that have never seen it, sorry you're lame. But that's terrible to say. But no, seriously, when it's showing, go see it. It is always a great time. So today on the show with me, I have several people. I have Bailey Hansen, who played our Magenta. I have Allison Sweeney, who played our Rocky. I have Cameron Allender, who was our Riff Raff. I have Catherine Mansfield, who played one of our party goers, but great backdrop personality.
Thank you.
Always. Yes, it was so fun to watch you slither all over and offer up so many call-outs. We'll talk about that later. And Morgan Reynolds, who was our Magenta. Jesus Christ. I haven't seen you guys forever. Yeah. All right. Let's try that again. Bailey was our Magenta.
Columbia.
God damn it. Okay. But Morgan was our Magenta. Bailey was our Columbia. There, I got it right. Wow. Okay. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. This is so great. And you might be wondering, listeners, why we are talking about this particular topic today. there are those times as theater artists where we work on a show and we go, okay, that was just another notch in the belt. I had a good time with that show. This performance for us was quite transformative. Am I right in assuming that?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Without a shadow of a doubt.
Okay. Yeah, we all gained a lot from this. Now, let me go ahead and describe to the listeners kind of what happened that night. We had one performance. One. And if you haven't seen the show, what usually happens is we play the classic 1975 movie up on a screen, and at several points, several of the actors represent characters that are playing in the movie, and they play them live. And this Rocky Horror Picture Show, this was, was this like the 9th year we've done it in a row? Something like that?
I think so. That sounds right.
Like 9 in a row, something like that.
I don't know. I kind of just got here.
I have been involved with the last 6 in some capacity. And this one was my first year directing it on my own. But for some reason, it seems like the people that loved this show in this town came out in droves. Out of 300 seats available, we sold 285.
Damn.
I know.
That is crazy.
Right? And just the amount of personality that everybody had packed it even more. Like, I've seen audiences of 500 that had less presence than that.
It was crazy.
Right.
We've done it here at the college before, and there's just a handful of people. And at the YO, it was packed.
Yeah.
Well, not only was it packed, it was packed with yes, but also just people who wanted to wear a costume or people who were exploring themselves and needed to be in a safer environment and around people who weren't going to judge them immediately. I saw somebody who may have been trying out what it felt like to be a man that night, and I swear to God, they like put on like makeup to have stubble and like flannel and suspenders, and like, I'm being a dude tonight. I am feeling my dude tonight. So one thing that we talked about very early on in the process, like we started to sit down and talk about rehearsal stuff. I was very, very big on stage intimacy, which we'll probably talk about. And I've talked about it on several other episodes of this show. So Morgan, tell us a little bit about what you came into this with.
Well, when I first heard about the whole intimacy training, I was kind of excited, but also a little nervous because I wasn't ready to be touched. And so I was like, I don't know these people. I don't know how to make this work. I got really lucky being paired with Cameron. And so I was able to call him and be like, hey, can we practice this a little bit more? Like, I don't feel comfortable. Like, we don't know each other very well.
Yeah.
And that changed our entire performance.
Oh,
right.
Absolutely. That hour we stayed behind and did everything. And I was right there with you. I was absolutely terrified of that. Being a assigned male at birth person myself, I was very worried of the idea of making you uncomfortable with as much intimacy. And so I am very glad we got a chance to really get comfortable with each other.
Right. And Rocky Horror is a show where if you're going to do it right,
We do it all.
you better be all over each other.
Yeah.
You better go big or go home.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't really tiptoe around it.
No. Again, I'll address what stage intimacy is. It's just a training where generations before, you're just expected, if it says on a page, man and woman kiss, well, you just have to do that, regardless of what might be going on personally for the actors playing those roles. You know, that could be something where a man might be incredibly uncomfortable being almost forced to kiss somebody who is a total stranger. And for women who, I was just talking about this with Andra, the woman who walks beside me last night. I was like, so have you ever been harassed in a bathroom? And she says, no, not harassed in a bathroom, but anywhere else. And I would imagine any of you who are women, or as I have identified as women at some point, have felt that.
Yeah.
Okay? So, for you to be put in the position, here, kiss this stranger.
Oh, boy.
Sounds like so much fun.
Right. I can't wait to have this trauma tonight. So that was something that we talked about. There is a lot of work on permissions. You know, a lot of work on connecting with your partner and saying things like, just so you know, tonight my shoulders might feel funny, or like, stay away from my midsection because there's something about that tonight that just doesn't feel right. Then there might be some nights where it's like, I am feeling wild and loose, and have at it.
Everything is open.
Yep. Yeah, seriously. And that, for your partner, can be like a little bit freeing, also intimidating, but at the same time, it is a consent thing. It is a huge consent thing.
Absolutely.
So
It's also a very huge trust thing.
yeah.
I say freeing was probably the best word for that.
Freeing.
It felt,
really.
I don't know, it just felt great to kind of like connect with someone like that in like the touching way, but also it was like more than that after that. Like after we kind of connected in that way, we connected in like a billion other ways.
It was like
you know?
emotional, like, you know
Absolutely.
what I mean? Like, you trust that person to be able to like touch you in a like very intimate way,
Right.
and like you don't have to worry about
you know,
any like
anything.
misinterpretations or anything like that. And like, yeah,
And while we were going through the rehearsal process, I'm going to say this as your director. Y'all surprised me a lot during the performance.
And not me tearing off my shirt during time warp.
That was one. That was one. There were a few things, though, and it was very much fueled by the audience who ate this show up with a spoon.
I don't think I could have been as like energetic and had so much adrenaline if like the audience wasn't that way.
Oh, man.
And it was euphoric. It was awesome. Like I was just on stage and I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. Like people are standing up, cheering, and I was just
Well, the moment I was really waiting for comes after the time warp. When we are doing the time warp with the audience, the entire crowd did it with us.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. Not ridiculous. It was amazing to be able to connect with a group like that. And that happens in Rocky Horror Picture Show productions all over. But for us, for them, for that time, it seemed incredibly timely. Everybody just needed to feel good. And damn it, did we. But the moment I was waiting for was the first Frankenfurter reveal.
yes.
That whole crowd went crazy. The crowd. I've never heard a crowd get that loud
Oh my God.
over a reveal.
It was so great. So what I mean is there's the you know, if you've seen the movie, Tim Curry comes down from an elevator and he's got this big cloak around him, and then there's this great moment where the cape or the cloak comes flying off and you see him in his lingerie and his pumps and the little the glubby things and amazing makeup and pearls. And so our Frank, we had a woman play Frank, and we're going to talk to her at some point. She couldn't make it today, but my God, that cape went flying off.
I'm getting goosebumps just
I know.
thinking about it.
Yep. That cape went flying off, and that crowd just
Erupted.
was beside itself,
Yeah.
screaming.
It went wild.
You couldn't hear the song going
No,
on.
yeah, I was on stage and I
one
couldn't
could
hear
hear
it.
the song.
Okay.
I
No.
literally like missed my cue because I was like, "What's happening? Where are we right now?"
so many people missed their cues and stuff, but like it was okay. 'cause
Whatever.
It looked great
No,
anyway.
no idea. Everybody was
No.
like, everybody up there is the sexiest thing that they've
Everyone
ever
was
seen.
watching Frank anyways. Whatever.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Our Frank was so bomb. Oh my
Oh
God.
God, I loved working with her.
Same.
I wish she could be here today.
Yeah.
It's okay. We
Now-
can just shower her in affection over.
There we
the
go. There we go. She's gonna hear this
Yes,
later and
yes.
just be like, "Oh my God!" And, yeah. Now, I will say I don't know, and I want to hear from you two, Bailey and Allison, about how that inspired you to go a little bit further. Because Bailey, there was a moment in Hot Patootie.
Yeah.
Where okay, so Bailey has this gold glittery vest with sequins all over. Yes, that's exactly the moment I'm talking about. I never did it in rehearsal. And Bailey had what did you have under? Was it
It was like
bustier?
a bralette kind
Yeah,
of.
a bralette.
Yeah, like a lacy bralette.
And so, she's out there dancing with Eddie, and at some point she just went, "Yep, this is happening," and ripped that vest open. The house went nuts. What inspired you to do that?
Honestly, I have no idea because I never thought in a million years that I would do that, ever. But I don't know. It was something about, like, first of all, because, like, we had all been talking in the dressing room because we were all very nervous. Like, you know, like,
We were all-
it was all, like, really excited energy, but, you know, just that pre-show, like, nervousness. And I just remember, like, right before Tessino went out, being like, right before Tessino went out, was like, I'm so nervous about this. Like, and we were like, you're gonna kill it. And something about Tessino going out there and watching her, like, rip off that cape. And I was like, if Tessina can do this, I can fucking do this. And like, I was out there and, like, I don't know, I just looked at Patrick and we were just, like, killing it. And everyone was yelling and I was like, what the fuck? Like,
Just go.
I was like, I'm never gonna, like, feel like this again. Like, this is what I have and, like, okay, go for it. So I don't know, I just did it and it felt fucking good.
So
like,
There was everyone had risky things that they went for. There was no risks that went untaken that night, and every single one of them paid off tremendously. I must say,
it's just one of those, like, it's one of those spaces that if you're like, I've worked really hard to feel good about the people I'm working with and about myself, and if I'm gonna take this risk, it's one of those situations that everyone's gonna be like, oh my god, and not like, what is with that, like, weird spot on your stomach or what? Like, you know what I mean? Everyone's like really hyped up about the movie and everything else, you know what I mean? And so it's not like they're gonna be like honing in and like critiquing one specific thing. So I was like, if I've worked this hard to try and like accept myself through this, I'm just gonna go for it and like have a bigger moment to think about instead of honing in on one small thing that I can critique later, if that makes sense.
Because I mean, that's one of those things that you hear about. Like, they say, you know, the thing that people fear more than death is speaking in public. Yeah. And then there are those, obviously, those people who will not ever go on stage ever, because then you're on display and everybody sees you. And there's a number of things that can go into that, but body image is a huge issue for that. Yeah. Like, everybody has things about their body that they're like, please never see this.
Yeah. You mean my whole body?
Yeah.
But you put that so much on display that night, Cameron, and that was amazing.
Killer.
And I never could have done it without all of you
Yeah,
guys.
it was
I mean,
awesome.
all of the AFABs here in the room can attest that
like,
my favorite memory, at least a personal moment from the show, was during that first dress rehearsal when I came out in my space alien outfit. And I had only vaguely described what I was going to come out in, which was essentially the gold and silver spaceman coat that didn't actually fit me. So I wore it as a cape rather than a jacket.
Yeah.
And I proceeded to wear a black thong and green fishnet stockings and at least 3 cans of spray body glitter.
So much.
And just to add a little bit of sci-fi comedy to it, I put the little silver spring ball headbands on, which slipped over my eyes during the main performance.
Oh my god.
So halfway through that scene, Riff had bug eyes, and it was great.
Oh god, that shit was
But
so
I remember fully looking at that, seeing all of my legs. Like, the only thing that you couldn't see was directly my crotch, because there was black underwear under everything else. But I was so terrified in that moment that I kind of had to say, I need my people to back me up on this and push me to do this. And I mean, that was probably like a real moment of trust and connection that I had with everybody. I don't like talking about when I'm insecure about my things.
Right.
But,
who does?
I mean,
no
I'm
one
really
does.
vulnerable about this.
Right?
But being able to trust a group of assigned female at birth people to like give me encouragement on body positivity was a major progressive moment of like trust and intimacy as a group.
Yep.
Well, and it helped that every time that anyone got off stage, we were like, you did it!
Did you were like, yes!
You look so hot, damn it!
I can say with absolute certainty that this cast brought together an environment of mutual respect, understanding, consent, and trust in one another.
Yeah.
That I honestly don't think I'll ever experience this with anyone else ever again.
It was like such a unique experience and group of people.
Absolutely.
Like, the chemistry is.
And I mean, you can all attest to just how much I bugged everybody with my consent checks.
I appreciate it so much.
Anytime I had to touch anybody, the moment we got off stage, I would check in to make sure everybody was okay. How we had to check in and make sure, see how people's bodies were feeling. One thing I really remember from our first time with me and Morgan working together is you said you didn't want your neck or face touched. But then by the end of that 1 hour one-on-one get to know each other, get to work with one another, I believe we did the surprise thing where at the very end of our little alien dance routine, I just fully grab your face and use that momentum, almost in this almost
Spin.
very primal growly snatch of your throat, and then we use that to spin each other around to get back into our spaces, and it was sexy.
Yes. Yes.
And I will say this, the amount of time and work we put into establishing a backstage relationship with each other translated so well on stage, and to me personally, I have never felt such a moment of comfort and trust and intimacy with another person as I did with you dancing on that stage in front of everybody.
That's great. I mean, that is amazing and wonderful, and as
Too much.
The thing about it is it's a 100-minute movie. At best, we probably got out there for about 18 minutes of stage time.
Yeah, really?
Because there were a couple things. There were a couple things that I wanted to ensure, and one of the I hate to say unfortunate results of the COVID pandemic and everybody really focusing on what is appropriate and what is not. I mean, I've talked on this show about plays that we can't really do anymore because we look at it today. It can't hold up to today's standards of appropriateness. Yeah. There were some things in that I'm like, okay, we all are talking about being very open with each other and very vulnerable, sensuous with our bodies and tapping into that. But there were times like Frank openly coming in to visit with Brad and Janet after they've kind of been seduced and really having some very naughty times with them. And that in today's climate is like, that's not entirely okay.
Yeah, there's not some explicit consent there.
No.
By today's standards, those scenes that was full stop rape.
That's date rapey.
Yeah,
that's very much. I mean, he came in and they both protested, and through just forced physical contact, got them to a point where they were excited about that.
Yeah.
Okay? That happened in the movie. I didn't want anybody in this cast to do that because, to be perfectly frank, there are people out there who cannot separate an actor from their character. We're in a small community here. I didn't want any of you to be seen as a rapist or as a victim, because that, regardless of what may have happened to you, I don't know if any of those things have happened to you, and I'm not asking you to share that. But if that did happen to you, you do not need to be seen that way. I thought that was incredibly important. So the scenes that we did do were about positivity and being the best version of your sexy self that you can be.
I think we all nailed that on the head.
Well, okay. I said I wanted to talk to both Bailey and Allison, and I did not talk to Allison about this because one of my biggest surprises in the show was dress rehearsal night. When we got out and did the floor show. Yep. Okay? Now that is when you have, let's see, it's Columbia, and then Rocky, and then Brad and Janet do a little kind of burlesque striptease number. Now, Allison was our Rocky Horror, okay? Rocky Horror is the perfect being that Frank has made for sexual pleasure. So Rocky is only about 6 hours old at this point and still learning all this stuff about body, but has been imbued with this DNA to just be
hot as fuck all the time. The whole time.
Yep. So Allison comes out and is doing her little dance, and we're like, yep, that is appropriately sexy. And then turns upstage, and we're all like, that is an ass. I see all of an ass right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I go to my costumer who's sitting out there with me. I'm like, did you know she was going to be wearing a tiny little thong like that? She goes, I had no idea.
Yeah, I do remember you, Allison. A moment right before we had that moment to go on stage, you turned to me and David and were like, which pose should I do? And me and David were both like, oh, that one shows off more of your ass. Do that.
I distinctly remember when you were facing the way that so that we could see, not so that
Yeah.
I remember making eye contact with Kale and Liberty, and we all went, damn. We were like, damn. We're all like, you guys are seeing this, right? It started off as a very side eye, and then we were all on the same page, and it was like, okay, yeah, we're all.
Yep, this is good.
Yeah, okay.
This is good. This is good.
It's not just me, right? Okay, it's not just
At least you were already on stage. The other two are like, I have to follow that? But I remember having some conversations with you and seeing your social media posts afterwards. That was a great personal moment for you.
It was.
So I'm interested to hear about that.
So yeah, I was in a brown underwear, thong. It was awesome. I don't think I've ever felt so obviously sexy. I mean, that's just the word to describe all this. But I don't know. It just felt super empowering. And I remember my mom telling me, she's like, some guy behind me yelled, "Marry me," when I came out on stage. And I was like, what? I didn't hear that. I wish I did. I would have winked at him or something, yeah, but...
I'm yours! That's amazing. Oh my God.
And when they first, I think Emily did, she was like, hey, so I'm kind of thinking by the end of this, you're a nothing. And I'm like, oh, okay. And she's like, how do you feel about that? And I was like, at first I was like, I'm kind of scared. Do you think it's gonna end up bad? It's gonna be too much, And then she's like, no, honestly, I think you should just do it. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna say fuck it, because when else am I gonna be naked, half naked on stage, and just dance my ass off and have so much fun?
Yeah, and to be clear, there was no specific nudity. There was no nudity that I knew of. It was pretty much all the naughty bits were covered.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
The only nipples that showed that night, I believe, were mine and Kale's.
Correct. And gosh, I wish Kale was here today, because going off of what Allie was saying here, and I don't think I'm oversharing here. Kale's a trans man who, and he might correct me at some other time, but he used this to feel good about the male body he has worked into.
He looked great.
He looked great.
Did.
It was killer.
Absolutely
Great.
awesome. Kale was amazing. He was sexy and on, and he and I really got to bond a lot, because I sensed that he was also really nervous about showing off his more masculine body to the world, and he needed about as much. I would say he probably needed more support than anybody in that moment, and so he and I got to be really close, because he and I got to talk about that whole becoming more confident in our masculinity and being just secure in ourselves and masculinity as well as femininity, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, again,
just frankly, sexual nature.
Oh, absolutely.
Sexualisms. I'm trying to think. Your charisma.
Your sexual energy.
Yeah.
I was very proud of him for doing that. I mean, I think that takes a lot of guts,
Well, in that floor show, he killed it.
God.
When he dropped to his knees.
Yeah.
There's another moment. The crowd just
I'm
lost their damn
now.
minds.
And I mean, I was already sweating, because I had been hauling ass trying to get to the floor show, trying to make sure I was ready in time, and I would still be getting chills watching it. So
He was the epitome of Brad Majors.
Well, and here's the thing that I loved about him with his costume suggestion. I mean, Allie came in and said, I've got a bra and underwear. That'll be fine. And we're like, oh, okay, fine. And then we're like, holy shit, that's
song.
Anyway, Kale says, what if I was like a Chippendales dancer?
Yeah.
And I mean, what do you mean? He said, well, the little collar with the bow tie and the cuffs, with cufflinks. And then that's about it. and he had, as I recall, some red Spanx and some rainbow suspenders.
Yeah, I think so.
And goddamn, he got out there, and you would never have guessed that there was an ounce of doubt in his own personal sexuality.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, he was out there just going, this is me,
Yeah.
this is what I got, you're going to get a load of it, and if you don't like it, go fuck yourself. And that, I loved that for everybody. I opened the show that night with just a little bit of a speech to everybody, just saying, hey, you know, this is where everybody is finding their sexy. Go ahead and feel your sexy. They're going to be feeling their sexy up here tonight. So I'm obviously I'm hearing it here, but I think for at least one moment, y'all found your sexy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
It was kind of hard not to. I mean, like, people like screamed for me when I came out in that, and I was like, okay, here I go then. I'm just gonna do
Many
it.
times you're on stage and you have like 100+ people yelling at you, and it's not bad.
Oh, God.
It's encouraging yelling.
Yeah, please do more.
The noises people made during my little solo bits in Time
Yeah.
Warp.
I think personally the part that built me up the most out of the entire thing was when I went out there as Magenta and I was doing my little
Oh my God, girl.
sachet.
Yes.
Girl.
When I heard everybody, I was like, oh, that's me.
They're doing that because of me.
Well,
You
okay.
did so good in that. I was freaking awesome.
And I'm going to say it, and then I'm not trying to point people out here, but we had several members of the cast that by traditional standards are considered fairly heavy people.
Me.
Okay? Or you know, they just don't fit the traditional standards of beauty, whatever the hell those
Me.
are.
Right,
Okay?
yeah.
But what we saw, and I'm going to use you as an example, Morgan.
Please do.
Because I know you have said this about yourself to me, if that's okay if I
Yeah.
say that. Like, you know, it's like, I don't know what's necessarily sexy about this, about me. And we just went, girl, just feel it. And it took you a couple times, but my God, when you started doing your dancing as Magenta, holy shit, there's nobody who would have questioned that you were sexually confident or body confident.
Yeah,
There was nobody. You go, I've got this, and you probably want this. Regardless if people
Everybody
did
wanted it.
Hell yeah.
And well, the best thing about all of that is I didn't see that. I didn't see weight or anything like that. And I just, like, you looked past it. You didn't,
Yeah.
it just wasn't there. Like, no type of judgment at all. Like, and honestly, it was beautiful the way everyone just was able to get out of their comfort zone and show off their body in a way that we all were just proud of it, you know? Like, it was empowering for all of us at the same time, like individually. I mean, it was just...
Yep. And I, like, usually hear about complaints from a show, like anything. I mean, if somebody went there thinking it was a nice, family-friendly, good night, let's bring the kids.
Oh,
That's
no,
on them.
no.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything about this one. All I heard was people having a ball. And I've already had people come up to me like, when are we doing it again? Because I want in. I was out in the audience, and this woman was sitting behind me. She'd never been to it. She'd never seen it. They told her, hey, dress kind of sexy like you want to, and she did. And it was even a little uncomfortable then. By the end of it, she goes, I had no idea what I was getting into, but I had my sexy on, and I want in next year.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, this is going to be a community-driven thing, and hopefully continuing on an annual basis. So, you know, this thing is going to, pardon the metaphor, touch a lot of people.
Well, and
I think that the biggest part of the whole performance was not just our chemistry with our partners, but our chemistry with everybody on stage. It wasn't me and Allison. We didn't hardly have any related roles, but when I saw her at Starbucks the other day, I still got just as excited as I did when I walked into the performance. You
Nice.
know.
Awesome.
it's really interesting and like really cool to see like how like that same empowering feeling that we had on stage, like seeing how that affects the people that are in the audience too. Like if
Oh, man.
we felt that empowered and that was able to help somebody in a way that like they were able to come out of their shell just from like to a degree and you know like feel more empowered and comfortable in their body just from sitting in the audience in the span of a show.
Yeah.
And for that to push them to then want to become involved in the show, like that's pretty impressive. Like,
well, there is a thing that I like to say a lot, and I've been saying it for the past like 10, 15 years now. We are a culture of nerds. It's interesting that in the ways we find a people and a tribe we belong to, and I think, without stating too hyperbolically, what you were just saying, Bailey, is you got a lot of people who found a place where they felt like they belong.
yeah.
And, you know, we're here in Sheridan, Wyoming, and there is I wouldn't say active, but, you know, a present LGBTQ plus community who, you know, they've found each other, they reach out to each other, but I would say underrepresented.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not just something that people can come out and say, yes, I identify as this gender or as this sexuality, because a lot of people still here, I would say, just have a hard time understanding it.
Yeah, it's a rough area.
Yeah. Which is going to bring me to a new line of questions here. And I'm going to ask everybody here this kind of in a round robin fashion. When we first started, we had one rehearsal one night where we sat down and we said, why are you doing this show? Now, I reached out to a ton of people and I said, okay, I'm putting this show together. I got interest from a lot of people. And so I said, of the people that said they're interested, I can make a cast out of this. I cast it right away without auditions. And I said, here we go. This is what we're doing. Everybody went, yep, this is what I'm doing. So I'm going to start with you, Morgan. Why did you do this show?
So this was actually my second show.
Right.
And I loved the way that the first one made me feel because I actually played Magenta in the first show as well. And it was so exciting to be part of a group of people with like-minded people that all wanted to feel sexy.
Okay.
And so when you told me you were going to do it again, I was so hyped. I was so hyped. I was like, let's go. Because that sexy feeling, I mean, I could probably feel it any night, but the night of the performance, it is so unlike any other. It is undescribable how empowered, how sexy, how just amazing you feel. And that was the feeling that I was looking for.
And you know what was great was being out in the house. Like, I was really gauging the audience and watching them. I'm going to say something very sweet. It was so adorable to watch your fiancé, soon-to-be husband, Vincent, out there taking pictures of you and video and filming. He was bubbling over with pride, and it was just wonderful. And there you were up on stage going, oh yeah, this is all for you, baby.
I'm so glad I got to meet your fiance after the show. I was so concerned about what he would think, but he was so nice.
I adore him. He's so sweet.
And he was in one of the very first productions that's been done in town. He was Eddie.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Shit. Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, Cameron, what did you...
You might want to skip over me because that's going to be a tangent. Because
That's gonna be a
my
tangent?
reason for being in the show
come on.
kind of evolved over the course, so I have like two fully separate things.
Bring it on.
Okay, this might be a long tangent.
That's okay.
gosh.
I've got a lot of time to go.
So, I came to Sheridan 2 years ago for my first year of college. I came to Sheridan because I knew Aaron Odom and I thought he would make a really good teacher. And I was just in this weird place. I've always been a very theater-centric person. I was raised in community theater. Some of my earliest memories are like eating Taco Bell and reading scripts off of the shelves in a green room in a local community theater. Like, those are my core memories. And from like 8th grade to present, I average 4 to 7 shows every single year that I am a part of.
Great.
Wow.
And as like involved and passionate about theater as I am, there was a point, especially in high school, where it really just destroyed my self-esteem. A slew of roles that just broke me inside and adapting very unhealthy acting tactics.
Okay.
This is why I can't be a method actor. I have
Good.
been
Good.
Yeah.
I have been permanently ruined because people let me method act characters who still give me nightmares.
Oh,
gosh.
no.
I was Judd Fry in Oklahoma. Is implied he rapes a woman in a dream sequence.
Yeah.
Like, that thing you were saying about people not separating people from their roles. My senior year of high school, a lot of people thought I was a creep because they saw me as the perverted farmer rapist in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And it led to this whole thing. I almost quit theater multiple times. And again, in Sheridan, I just wasn't necessarily getting the creative nourishment I was hoping for because
after coming out of what you just told us, like, it sounded like it was going to take a lot.
But because, again, COVID happened. And the thing was,
oh, God.
It just keeps going.
I almost had a moment where I found that fire in myself from directing, because I was directing in my senior project in high school was going to be, I was directing a one-act horror play called Las Lloronas, which was about...
Oh, yeah.
It's about, like, this old Spanish folklore about, like, the woman in white drowns her children because her husband cheated on her. And it was about how that myth evolved over time and the different historical things. And it was, like, these 5 women who all were a different interpretation of La Llorona, all just sort of intermingling in each other's stories, all, like, orchestrated by El Diablo himself. And it got canceled the week it was supposed to open because the schools closed. And that left me spiraling, and it was a whole thing. And when I knew Rocky Horror was going on, I walked into this feels like a show where I can fully embrace the out there insanity, intense, wild, chaotic energy that I like to bring to roles.
Oh, man, and you do.
Oh, absolutely. I was terrified of touching people because, again, I didn't have a lot of experience with that. Nobody really taught me how to interact and touch people, especially in, like, the theatrical, sexy manner. And so, like, again, it was a major thing where anytime I had to touch someone, I would go around to everyone in the cast, even if I didn't touch them, or like, how are we feeling tonight? Where are you? How are you feeling? And then every time I got off stage, it would be immediately, how do you feel? Did I touch you in a way you were uncomfortable with? Is there anything I can do to make you feel better? And I feel like that really helped me connect with everybody in the cast and get more comfortable being sexy in myself. And then I realized somewhere along the way, this is a whole nother thing. I am an assigned male at birth autistic person.
Oh, wow.
And so that has led to a major amount of cognitive dissonance and disconnection from my sexuality and just being able to express myself sexually in general. I believed I was asexual up until my senior year of high school, which turned out to just be me believing, from between the fact that I was autistic to the fact that I am, in fact, a pretty heavy-set man, that I was incapable of ever being perceived as attractive or sexy by anybody. And so I repressed any potential feelings I could have had, because why would I want to subject myself to feelings that could never truly be reciprocated? And again, that led to some major sexual repression, and I was just coming out of that. And as I was going into the show and getting comfortable with everybody and realizing, oh shit, I'm not just the creepy hunchback monster. I get a moment to be legitimately sexy with these people.
Yeah.
And again, the floor show reveal was one of the greatest moments of my life. And it just led to this moment, the cheering that I got from that show. And at some point, this show evolved from being just me trying to get my theatrical creativity back and became me claiming my sexuality in a world where I just don't really have a lot of opportunities to really be a sexual being. Because with just how society views men and how, like, there's a lot of, like, social constructs and stuff that, like, you as an autistic person are afraid to, like, engage or try to talk to people.
Right.
Because, like, again, I understand that men are scary and, like, there's a very dangerous culture and that it's not always safe for women to just talk to random men or, like, just to engage in that. But again, from my perspective, that means any attempt that I make to, like, engage and, like, try to find a partner could potentially be me terrifying and potentially, like, doing damage to a person. And that's the last thing I would ever want.
Right.
Because if I get one social cue wrong, suddenly it's not just an awkward attempt at a romantic advance. It's I'm being a creep.
Right.
And so this safe space to just be like, hey, can I just grab your face and pull you into, like, this, like, very primal, sexy tango?
Please do.
Oh, again, you were uncomfortable, and, like, when you texted me just randomly saying, hey, can we get together and just work our scene so we know how to touch each other? That was a huge sigh of relief for me, because I didn't know how to tell you that I wanted to the same thing with you. We had talked, like, twice before that. I was in another show, so I came in much later. But that show was about being able to find my sexuality freely. And again, I walked away from that show feeling, honestly, me and Time were
pretty hot.
Me. I left it all out
Ripping
there.
your shirt off and throwing your clothes to the crowd, Cameron.
Oh, that's right. I lost my favorite vest that night.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Oh, that's right. I gave it back. As a
Somebody
gift.
caught it and found me later, and they're like, I think he wanted to keep this. I'm like, did he throw it to you? And they're like, well, yeah. I'm like, your call then.
Yeah. I mean, those were some nice clothes, but those were my gifts to the audience.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right.
But yeah, that's really what this show
Beautiful.
was for me. It
Oh,
was
yeah.
truly helped me reclaim my identity.
Allison, you're up.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start a little bit in high school too. I did do theater in high school, and I loved every second of it. And I did come to Sheridan doing theater as my major first, but some complications came up and everything, and so I had to just switch to business and everything. But when Aaron told me, hey, I'm doing this show and you should, do it, and I was like, okay. Like, I finally had that moment where I was like, I'm going to be in a show again, I'm going to be on stage, and and I was just so excited for it.
Well, as I recall from our initial conversations, you were saying something about it being more of an adult role.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
And I guess I never really asked you what that meant. I mean, obviously, yes, Rocky Horror is a little bit more adult in nature, but I don't think that's entirely what you meant.
I feel like, in high school you can't really do anything like super explicit.
Too
in
racy,
that, in
but
that type of
I mean,
way.
you can still do things where you're bringing up things that maybe the audience needs to confront, I mean, I remember in my high school years, I did the show Rebel Without a Cause, which is about, basically kids feeling anxious and wanting their parents to stand up for them and things like that. It's still uncomfortable, but it's not I'm going to go and get my sexy on. So that's really kind of where you were going. Like, I want to explore that part of acting.
Yeah, I did, and I'm glad I did it because I found that new sense of my body, and I'm constantly sexualized. I mean, I'm a blonde, skinny girl who has decent boobs, and I am told that quite often, and it's nice, yes, don't get me wrong, but after a while it was just overwhelming, and like, are people ever going to see me as a businesswoman who wants to change the world, who wants to be this manager and a boss and everything? Like, am I ever going to be seen that way, and like,
right? Are they just going to see you as a colleague who might be presenting a collaborative opportunity that doesn't involve sexuality at all?
And well, this show, I was finally okay with being sexy and like not letting other people define it for me.
Right.
If that makes sense.
So really what you're saying is it empowered you a little bit more. Like, in a way, and I really don't want to be sexist here,
It's okay.
that is an asset. I mean, frankly, there are some people who would be like, I would like to be that and be able to control and intimidate people in that way. At the same time, it's like, you now know that about yourself, so whether you use that as an asset or not is up to you now.
Right.
It's on your dime.
Right?
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
And I did want to do something more adultish in a way of being able to not censor anything, and like just be able to be free. Freeing was the perfect word for me earlier. Like, I was just able to kind of let go and not have to worry about like the judgment or worry about the constant stereotypes that go along with society and everything, and I didn't even think about it.
I'll have to say, your mom came up to me afterwards, and it was one of the most awkward conversations I've ever had in my life. Because I'm there with Andra, and we're just going, wow, what just happened? This was an amazing show. And your mom comes up and she goes, hi, I'm Allison's mom. I go, oh my gosh, yeah. And I could not read her expression. Because, honestly, if I were a parent and I saw my child go up and do that and look that way and get marriage proposals shouted to her from the audience, I would have to take a moment to take it all in. And it looked like after a little while she went, my God, this girl has found something that made her feel amazing. And as a parent, that's what I want to see for my kid.
I definitely did feel that. It was...
But the conversation was like, hi, wow, I didn't know how you'd feel about this. She kind of just went, yeah. And I'm like, well, it's great to meet you. I have some things to... And she stood there for a moment, too, like, are we done? I think that... But it sounded like she had a great time. We're Facebook buddies now, so...
Yeah, she's probably one of the most open and understanding people I've ever met in my life. Like,
Awesome.
without my mom, I wouldn't be where I'm at. I wouldn't have the confidence or any of that without her. So, I mean, you probably did feel awkward, but honestly, she's so understanding and open. Like, it probably wouldn't even, like, no, she was probably totally okay with it.
Nice.
But, yeah.
Well, awesome. Okay, Bailey, are you ready for this?
Sure.
Are you? Because I saved you for last on this
Oh, no.
because when we first talked about this, there was such a big question from you that I went, oh my gosh, I hope you find what you're looking for here.
Yeah.
Because when we talked about this, you had a very specific kind of outset when you started. So when we first started, like, I had my reasons, everybody here had their reasons. What did you say?
So I had only very recently moved back to Sheridan. I had spent the last almost 3 years living in Idaho. It had been like a really last minute move back. Things like circumstances were not great. You know, it had been like rough couple months. So things were like very like rocky, rocky,
Intended, yes.
like rocky start. You know, so things were like really rough, and I had like, for the first time in a really long time, I had like a lot of questions about like who I was as a person as far as like my gender and sexuality went, which is like something that I personally hadn't really had to like think about or struggle with since I was I don't know, like
Much younger.
much
Because I've known you for a number of years,
Yeah,
and over the past several years, if you don't mind my saying so,
No, yeah.
you presented yourself as very comfortably lesbian.
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay, and you were in a very different spot when we started.
Yeah. So I came out as a lesbian, I think, in like 7th grade or something. So I mean, really, it was like one of those things that like from the time I was very young was like, oh yeah, this is who I am. And it was one of those things that never really was like, I never questioned it, you know, it just seemed
you
like,
knew it.
yeah, this was just who I am. That was like never, you know, and I mean, like, it was still scary for me to come out and stuff like that. And like I had issues and things like, you know, growing up in Sheridan, Wyoming, as
Right.
an openly
Right.
queer person was not
Right.
fun. It was never like any of that pushed me to be like, oh, is this who I am? Like, it was always very black and white for me. And then like, if I'm just being like completely honest, my partner, who I'd been with for 9 years, broke up with me. And it was, I mean, it wasn't a mutual thing. I was still very like, you know,
Right.
but it was just,
and part of the reason you moved home.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the reason I moved home.
Yeah.
It was just one of those things that just, it wasn't gonna work anymore for, you know, just
Right.
various reasons.
Right.
And she's still like my best friend in the entire world. Like, I would do anything for her. We're still
Right.
on very good terms. It was just one of those,
But
like,
as partners, it's like, this isn't working.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was one of those things where I was like, I could stay here, but I think what I need for myself is to figure things out, because it was a very like confusing thing to try and live with the person that I was still very much in love with, you know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
to like
right.
still be in the same house with someone
Right.
who is now no longer my romantic partner.
Yeah, no, that'd be too hard.
It was,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I mean, I called my mom bawling, and I was like, I need you to come get me. Like, and I packed my car full of
Yeah.
as much stuff as I could, and my dad drove down and he picked me up,
Yeah.
and we came
Yeah.
home. So
And I'll say it, like, I've known your family for a while. You are all very close.
Yeah.
That's a very close and supportive family,
yes,
and that's awesome.
I don't
that you
know
have
what
that.
I would do without him.
Yeah.
'Cause he really, like, he drove in one night to come and get me, and he drove me home the next day. So
Yeah,
and
and that's awesome.
I've been
That's awesome.
like staying with them, so like I don't have to like, I'm living with my parents again, which but
I've been there. I've been there. I've
but
been there.
like I don't know what I would do without
Right.
them. But like
Right.
it was like stepping back. Like 9 years is a long time to be with someone, but
That is. Oh my
like
gosh.
because we were, you know, like high school sweethearts, like, you know, the whole like known each other since we were born, you know, like, so this was like for the first time I was like, it gave me like a weird space to think about like relationships and who I was. And like even during the last like couple years of our relationship, I had felt like a weird sense of insecurity about who I was as a person, not the relationship, but just me and like my sexuality and stuff. And there was like some weird things that I was just like, I feel like there are things about me that I like wouldn't let myself question, because then it made me feel some insecurities about the relationship and stuff like that. You know, like if I thought too much about it, then I was going to try and find so I just shut it all down. You know, if I think about this, I'm going to find problems here. Like it was too much, so I didn't think about it. But then I didn't have that.
You didn't have that pressure.
Yeah.
So here you are in this place where you're surrounded by people who are supporting you. You don't feel the pressure of having to figure that out at the price of upsetting your partner.
Right.
And now you're in this place where you're like, what am I again?
Yeah, pretty much. So
Wow.
it's, and I mean, if I'm being completely honest, even through all of this, it's like I still have like a big old question mark over everything.
Okay.
But this was one of those things that I remember my dad was like, you should check your email. And I was like, okay. And he was like, Aaron Odom sent you an email. And it's for Rocky Horror. And I was like, okay. And I honestly, at first I was like, I wasn't going to do it because I was just in a very bad headspace. And I was like, I think the last thing I want to do right now is like be around a bunch of people and like
Be on stage.
Be on stage in front of people.
Being sexy
And
with a bunch of strangers.
Yeah, exactly. And pretend like I feel like I'm, you know, really fantastic and sexy when I feel, you know, completely the opposite. And then I was like, maybe this is what I need. Like maybe this is like the push that I need. So I emailed you back and I was like, I want to do this. Like, I want to do this. And I'm really, really, really glad I did.
We are too.
Yeah. Because, whoo. So I had all of that, and I have like trauma and all of these other things and it was just all of these like sexuality and gender and trauma that I had just spent so many years not dealing with.
Yeah,
because
stuffing away. Yeah.
I had just been pushing it down because I was like, I cannot handle what it might like.
The answers that come from it.
Yeah, and I can't risk ruining these good things that I have by what I might find, you know? Like, and so finally I was like, I need to, like, this, burying these things is not actually healing.
No. No.
I tried to convince myself it was. It is not. So I've been healing.
Good.
And it's not easy. It's a lot easier to push things down, but if you push it down, it keeps coming back up. You know what I mean? So
and in some cases more violently.
Yeah. So I'm working through it, and so it's. I don't have all the answers yet, but I feel like for the first time in like, I don't know, maybe my whole life, you know what I mean? I don't know how long this has been fighting, like, I don't know how long I've been trying to like repress all of this, you know what I mean? Like, I couldn't give you an actual answer, but for the first time after like actually being around all these people and being like, I trust these people so deeply, and like the intimacy training and everything, especially just for me specifically, was like, I have to be comfortable with myself, like, because again, like, it's that, like, if I don't give it a second thought, it can't hurt me, like, and I was like, no, I have to pay attention, like, am I comfortable with someone touching me here? Because if I don't pay attention to that, then this is going to be a problem. And so it's
going to come up later in a way you don't expect.
Exactly. So I was kind of forced to confront that there, and so I was like, well, shit, thanks a lot, Aaron. I'm like standing there.
Here's your therapy, swallow it.
Literally, I'm standing there that first night, and you're like, okay, so we're going to do this. And I'm like, oh, fuck. Oh, no. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, maybe I just won't tell Patrick. And I'm like, no, don't do that, babe. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to be honest. And honestly, Patrick and I were so awkward the first night. I was like,
oh, yeah.
It was so awkward, but we were both on the same page where we were like, let's just be very, very, very honest with each other. Like, this is uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable. I'm uncomfortable. But let's just be very open about it. And, like, so we just worked our way through it. And I was like, even just after the first night, I was like, something about being really, like, awkward and vulnerable. And, like, even if you laugh about it, like, hey, that was really awkward. But we got through it. It gets easier and less awkward the more you do it.
Was that awkward for you? Yes, it was also awkward for me. Okay, good. Now I feel better.
But even just after that first night, it was like just its weight had been like lifted off my chest, because I was like, I'm confronting what makes me uncomfortable and why.
Yeah.
And like I can then like there's something about like being able to say like this is why I'm uncomfortable with this, and I don't even have to tell someone else. I don't have to tell any of you guys why, but I can just say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this, and
Not
you guys
tonight.
say okay.
Okay,
Like-
what would work?
Yeah.
You know,
And-
like if I went and I'm like put my hand like in the small of your back.
Yeah.
You're like, nope, that's not working tonight. Okay, it's like, but we have to do something.
Right,
And so,
yeah.
How about between my shoulders? That will work better.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect.
And it's something about knowing that I have to find something that'll work too, because sometimes I feel like I get really discouraged being like, well, that doesn't work. But
Yeah.
it's like, well, what will? And it's like, okay, because there's always
Yeah,
something
yeah.
else. Like, okay, so maybe you're not a lesbian. That's okay.
Oh, wow.
You're something else will work. It's okay. You don't have to have that. You know what I mean?
Oh,
you
man.
know? So I've sort of had this like weird revelation where it's like I don't have to have all the answers right now.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Yeah.
Oh my word. I will say two
So I'm
things.
just kind of being me.
I will say two things that I enjoyed in your journey through this, as watching as the director and the puppet master and everything. Was one day you came and listeners, Bailey has a buzz cut. Okay, it's very, very close and it looks great on her.
Oh, thanks.
It does.
I don't think it was the pink color that it is now when we started. And you came to me and you went, is that going to be okay? And I'm pretty sure my response was, absolutely fucking yes. Just go right ahead. And now this is her. This is who she is right now.
Yeah.
This cute pink lemonade buzz cut that she's got right now. And it's amazing. That was one.
Thank you.
The other was, there was one night when I could sense, like, we were still in that awkward phase of, I don't know what is sexy about me. Everybody was feeling it. And I looked around at the cast, I went, everybody here sees somebody else as sexy, and they don't. They don't get it. Yeah. They don't see it in themselves. And I can't remember if I opened it up. I said, does anybody want to know what... was that how it happened? Did I ask that?
Yeah.
I said, does anybody want to know what anybody else sees about
Was
them
this
that's
the thing
sexy?
about me?
Yep.
Because this was when you actually we were doing the floor show for the first time, and you were like, "Okay, Bailey, go," and I couldn't
You
move.
were like, I don't know what
I couldn't move.
Okay,
Yeah.
get up there and do a strip show for us, okay?
Yeah.
Be burlesque, right? So, I brought it up. I said, does anybody want to know? And Bailey, I think you just said, yes, I want to know. Raise hand, please. And I think it was Emily, our costumer.
Yeah.
Goes, Bailey, you got ass for days.
Oh, absolutely.
And what I mean by that is she's got some very nice curves, okay? That some people go, God, I would kill for that.
Honestly.
You know?
Every day.
I had a student in the same situation years ago, or a cast member years ago in the same situation, and I said, you got that, and I'm not pointing it out to be sexualizing you. I'm saying that right there is what somebody finds attractive. So you have the power on that. And from then on, Bailey, you were swinging that thing all over the place. And it was amazing. The hips were rocking, and people were like, dude, I cannot stop watching that.
It's nice when
I'm
a
pretty
stranger points it out because,
True.
I mean,
Yeah.
we weren't really strangers.
Well,
we were
yeah.
acquaintances at that point, but it was nice when somebody would point something out like that you just wouldn't notice. Because when you hear it from your fiance or from your parents, you're like, you have to say that. Yeah, but strangers, you're like, you don't know me from a tin can.
Yeah.
So
Well, and in that environment, too, you knew that the person giving you that critique was not trying to sexualize you. They weren't trying to get anything out of it.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
like, women, you've all heard it, hey, you should smile more.
Yeah.
But, I mean, when somebody goes, you know what I like about you? This. And that's just it. I wish that I had just a slice of that for myself. Like, I could do that. And that to me, for you, Bailey, that was so amazing to see just the, oh, I've got that.
I got that,
absolutely.
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Pretty sure I
Wonderful.
followed up with, yep, you have an hourglass figure, so work it. So I'm like, flaunt that shit because, damn, I would.
If I may add a little
Yes.
complimentary thing about your body and how you
Oh,
presented
yes,
yourself
yes.
in Rocky Horror. One thing I really noticed about you is the way you did this rotating hip pop when you
Ooh.
It was like,
Oh, yeah.
like, and you gave off a lot of like jazzy pop energy,
Mm-hmm.
and it gave you like this almost like light, colorful, cutesy sexy to you.
Yeah.
Like you didn't radiate a lot of like super sultry energy, but it was like very bold and like very playful, and
very,
that's what
Like
made
Liza
you
Minnelli
sexy.
Cabaret is what
Oh,
I saw.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it gave off a lot of that just jazz energy where it wasn't trying to be sexy. It just was that way because it was so into itself.
Yep.
Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so we've been chatting for a while here, and God, what a wonderful thing to reminisce about. What a wonderful thing to reminisce about, and thank you all for opening up and sharing so much.
I hope I
about
didn't
this.
overshare.
No. I mean, this is all your comfort level going out to the world. I have an international audience at this point. So.
Enjoy.
But I want to just open it up for any kind of last thoughts here that anybody has about the show, about the performance, about the thing, anything that you'd want to share. Cameron, you got something.
One thing I've been wanting to say for a while now. One thing I really noticed and liked about our show in particular is the movie, of course, Tim Curry is the star. He was the main person in that show, but with the way we ran the show, it didn't feel like there was a star. There wasn't a single person who stole the show.
Yeah.
It felt like we were all an equal ensemble.
We were all the main
and
characters.
we all just reverberated this phantasmagorical energy of pure chaotic self-confidence and support in each other that we all had our moment where we made the audience scream. Like, there was no person in that show.
Nothing but stealing the show.
Yeah.
Everybody stole the show.
And in that process, it never felt like anybody was trying to one-up each other.
Yeah,
It felt like
it
we
wasn't
were
competitive.
Like it felt like, and that's something that with the show could very dangerously could happen. Like somebody tries to outdo everybody else.
Yeah.
But to us, to me at least, it felt like we were all just screaming so loudly and just being ourselves so unapologetically while being with each other that our screams all became one. And then it was just this loud, chaotic, passionate cacophony of raw passion and pleasure.
Ooh.
Sorry, that was a
Ooh.
mouthful.
That was outstandingly poetic.
Yeah, what?
So, yeah, I don't know if anybody else has anything to add. I think that sums it up
I was
really
gonna say,
nicely.
you want me to follow that?
Yeah, no, I don't think we can. I don't think we can. Well,
So I think that my favorite part of this entire production, I've been in productions before, not just Rocky, and I have never had a family out of the cast.
Yeah.
And seriously, when everyone started pulling up that made it today, I was like, it's a family reunion. It's just like we had a game night one night, and it was fun because it was a family reunion.
Yeah.
And the members of the cast who couldn't make it today are all they had, some of them got sick, some of them were exposed to COVID positive people, some of them just they couldn't make it, and we felt their loss.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have one-on-one interviews with the rest of them, and that's going to be part 2 of this episode, just a post-mortem of Rocky Horror Picture Show 21. Hopefully we get to keep doing this year after year, and if any of you are here, you're certainly welcome to join up again.
Try
I
telling me
will
no.
probably be gone.
Oh! Well,
Well, I'm sorry. I got accepted into Columbia College in Chicago. So if I can pull off the financial aid, I'm gonna be in Illinois.
Congratulations!
oh, that's so amazing.
Also, there is
Awesome.
one more thing I wanted to say.
Okay.
You were all the first group of people that I felt like I didn't have to second guess where I stood with you. You were the first group of people where I didn't feel like, is my autism making me perceive my relationship with these people as being closer than it was? You were my first, I trust you completely people. And I want to thank you for that.
Agreed.
And I'll say, I think that was one amazing byproduct of this pandemic that is still going on.
Never
I
ending.
keep forgetting that COVID is still around.
But it's a thing where you've just got nothing but respect and understanding for a lot of people that their voices might not have been heard for a long time, and now we're doing that. It's just a time. It's a time. when now we're looking at that stuff. And we're not necessarily going, okay, wake up and listen to all these different voices. We're going, hey, we now understand that these voices are actually saying something, and they can be heard, and that's okay.
Yep.
Oh, all of you, thank you so much. I couldn't have asked for a better production last year. I couldn't have asked for it. So I'm going to go ahead and say for Bailey Hanson, Allison Sweeney, Cameron Allender, Catherine Mansfield, who had to jet a little bit early, and Morgan Reynolds, my name is Aaron Odom. We're all signing off here. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you in another 2 weeks. I will see you at intermission.